Hello, video today on copying. I don't know if people have issues with copying. I'm guessing some of you do. So I'm just going to turn off these cameras. So I have two different assemblies. These are broken up into separate assemblies. This is not just one assembly, and this is not just one other assembly. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to run the numbering. So let's run the numbering. Okay. This has already been numbered. So you can see none of the numbers have changed, which is good. They should not have. So now I can show you where the parts are. So you can see. So B2 is these bottom ones here. And then B3 is the middle ones. There's two either side of each of these big assemblies. B4, D1 is the bracing in here. So you can see C1 and C2 are those ones. This one over here has holes in it. So what has happened, I won't go through it all. So what I'll do is I'll stretch this down a little bit. And when I can export it, I'll export it. But let me go back into the numbering. And what I'll do is I'll take a screenshot. Okay. So now what's happened is, through my own mistake, I didn't realize. I did know at the start, I just forgot that this is actually, there's two of these assemblies. So you could go through and try and pick the parts, like these are loose plates. So if I went into the model where I am and start picking these, you could change the quantities, right? So you could do behavior and you could change the quantities for assembly to 2. I think that's too complicated for me. So what I would suggest doing is copying it over. So just copy it back this way. This is like 60 feet high. So copy it back this way like 50 feet or so. So you have a couple of different ways you can copy. You can come in here to the advanced transform element. So an advanced copy. So you can do a regular advanced copy, or you can do a copy with include additional connections. A lot of times when you use this copy, there's issues with copying holes. If you already have too many holes, so it is important first to run a clash check. So if you run a collision check, clash check. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I already ran this before I output the drawings. So you can see there's nothing clashing. Sometimes what will happen is see, these two assemblies are quite similar. So I would have copied, I actually did this one first, this more simple one, and then I brought it over here and then I added to it. But I did find when I was doing my clash check that there was some extra holes. There were some extra holes in here. So what happened is I had to change a couple of holes. These holes on the inside, I have to change these to blind bolts. So I have to split these bolt groups. So I've already done that in a separate file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this over here. So the way to copy if you have no clash checks. So if you just grab everything and then you do advanced copy. Let's just see if that works. Now, the advanced copy is not copying the connections. So you probably want to copy the connections, right? Now, the problem is I did okay there, so I'm actually after copying this already. And you'll see if I delete that, there's one underneath it. So just be careful with that. So I'm going to back out of that. Okay, I've backed out of that now, so there should be only one here. And there is only one. So now go back one. That'll do the zoom and go back one more. Alright, so we're good there. Now what I'll do is I'll save that. Alright, so let's say I want to go in the Y direction, so I want to select all those elements. Now I can use the advanced copy now, or I can use this one. Now that this box is ticked, that will also work for this one over here. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this 50 feet. I'm going to copy one, I'm going to preview it. And it struggled a little bit with some of the connections there, right? Okay, so now what we'll do is let's number that. So let me just turn these off. I don't like to number everything. I like to kind of, now you can if you want. I generally will do a box around everything, but let's just number everything. So let's see. As you can see on this other one here, these connections are still in there, the base connections, so they did copy correctly. Now I have my advanced steel to set to not copy the numbers. So if I go in here and check the naming, you can see there's no naming. Okay. So on these three assemblies, the top beam here is the same. All the outside beams are the same. Some of the columns are different. So now I'm going to go to home and I'm going to number again. And that looks pretty good. So it looks like that copy will also have worked. So this is just a kind of test to show you. But I think if you use this method of copying and you don't have your clash check done, you're going to copy extra holes you don't need, or you might not copy those holes, and then the numbering gets messed up. So if I go back and look at my screenshot, we can see, I don't know why that maximized. We can see there's now 4, so here, you can see there's now 6, so that's good to be 2. 6, 6, 6, that's right, 2 extra braces. The C1 is 4. Yeah, so there should be 1 of extra. The C1 and 2, they're the outside columns. You can see here. C1, C2, and then C3 and C4 are the 2 on the other end. So the numbering seems to have worked just fine. And all the channels is 2 of each instead of 1. The B1, there was 1 of those. B4, B1, B6 is there. So that has copied them correctly. So that's fine, and the numbering has worked. So generally the rule is, if you're copying, I don't know if it really matters, because if I go back, let's back out this. If I go back, you'll find that if you copy it by just copying it, you should have the same results. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you're copying assemblies, just run your clash checks first, and then you should be fine. So let me just check, delete, okay, back out of that, okay. Now I'm also just going to grab everything this way and do copy, and copy everything this way 50 feet. And now do numbering again. So in the past, I used to have an absolute nightmare copying things like this. It used to drive me up the wall. And I guess over time of figuring out the right process, it's not really an issue anymore. Let's see. So again, we have 6, which is fine. So it looks like we have no new part numbers. And again, it has numbered correctly. And you can see that the ordinary copy has also copied over those connections. So it has been told to me in the past, it's just better to just do regular copy. But I think the bigger issue is the clash check. So once you have no clash of holes, because what will happen is you might have a double set of holes here, and then when you copy it, maybe you don't copy the extra set of holes, and then it'll get a different number, even though the plate's going to be the exact same because it has an extra hole in that spot. I think that's what happens. So you can see I know the model pretty well. That is right. B3. So hold on, the columns are highlighted. So I don't know. I guess I find this is important. Some people might not. I don't know if you have any issues. I know in the past I've had a lot of issues copying stuff. So B2 is at the bottom, B3, B4, D1 is the bracing, 6 of those, C1, C4, 4 of each of those, B1, that's right, C5 is up on the top, B6 is those two, yeah. So everything is fine. So I do think, long video, sorry, I just thought I'd go through the kind of process, my thought process on it. It does seem to work, and I do recommend, I would just recommend, make sure you do your class check. It's worth spending 5 minutes. After you do the class check, you can choose to ignore some elements. Obviously, things like the slab, you can check the behavior. Look, I have it all turned off for use for numbering, use for lists, use for collision, so that my anchor bolts are not going to hit it, because you don't want that turning up. You don't need that clash. So I think that's important. So just make sure you class check before you copy. It seems you can copy it either way once you don't have modeling errors in the model. I know that frustrates some people, so I guess the moral of the story after a long video is do a collision check or class check. Alright, thank you. Bye.